Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with David McIlwaine. David, it's great to connect with you. You're the founder and managing principal at Mac Assets. And I'm looking forward to today's call and today's podcast interview because we're going to be talking about financial and investment literacy. And I always like to start off every show as a business coach that works with people all over the globe who are successful and stuck and get them unstuck. Where are people, let's start here. Where are people stuck when it comes to financial and investing literacy today? And how can they
Great question.
Unstuck? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there are several answers to this, and obviously it depends on your level of education, your level of income, your level of expertise. Where I focus is in the top 1% of earners, and I also focus on how to teach our children of those earners how to think differently around money. I think people are stuck around money as a scarce resource as opposed to a renewable resource. When we approach money, we often approach it from a micromanaging point of view. In fact, money is nothing more than a means of exchange.
Yeah.
And people don't think about it like that. It's a tool. It is not the end all be all. And investments, very much like that, are tools. They are, people think about money as binary decisions, and they're not.
Yeah.
So when we talk about literacy, there's no literacy being taught. And the literacy is generational, the illiteracy and the ignorance or experience is being passed down generationally. I remember when I made my first 7-figure year, I talked to my dad, and my dad was an Air Force officer. He didn't know what to do with that kind of money.
Yeah.
And you have to go out. I had to go out and learn on my own. And from there, I've spent the last 20 years trying to teach my children all the different things that money can and cannot do for them, and how not to be shackled to it as a deficit point of view.
Yeah. I love it. I love what you're talking about. Is the way to get unstuck is to first shift your mindset of money, right? That money
that's a big part of it.
Right. It's really a tool. And when you come from that space where you don't have a scarce mindset and you look at it as a tool, it almost neutralizes it. I really like the way that you kind of that you explained that. All right, let's dive into some of the things that you said, David. You mentioned it's not being taught. I see that in my business too, and I'm a business coach. You're a financial investing, I would say, coach, if you will.
Private equity guy that teaches educational investment literacy.
Yeah. And so let's kind of go back, right? So, I mean, growing up, my family, talked about this type of stuff, not to the extent that I would have wanted them to. But I think a lot of kitchen tables are not talking about this. They're not talking about it. And when should they start talking about it? What's the taboo of talking about it? And how do we get people to start talking about it?
Well, I think there's a cultural paradigm that's in play. Part of it is competition. Oftentimes we view money as a competitive battle, and that feeds into success. And the kitchen table at the top 1% level, money's talked about differently than in the other 99%. If we think about it pragmatically, money is an element that allows us to make choice, as opposed to what we have to do. Every decision we have is a choice. And I think part of the questions that are not being asked at the table are, what choices are we making? What are the decisions that we're choosing, or what are the items and the results that we're seeking out versus what are we giving up? So when you've got a 5-year-old and the 5-year-old wants a piece of candy and we make the decision for them, they're not empowered to make the choice of candy, cavity, expending a nickel. I'm dating myself clearly. Expending $2 on candy versus what we do with that $2 in another form, shape, and avenue. So let's say that child wants a piece of candy and they also want a new Lego toy. Do we teach them that 5 requests for candy, aka $10, might equal a Lego toy, and there's delayed gratification in that? Or do we just say to them no? Now, I've raised 2 kids, so I do know what I'm talking about, and I've been a single parent, so I have been in the grocery store having that fight with my young children.
Yeah.
And that's part of the questioning that we're not doing. Another part of it is we're not talking about what dollar cost averaging does, what compounding effects are on investments, what are the questions we need to look at for making investments, and even why are we investing?
Yeah.
Are the horizons we're trying to achieve? Are there goals that are different from the norm?
Yeah.
I think it's
Let's talk.
Seriously conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's talk about compounding. There's been a shift in the last decade from instant to more, from delayed to more instant gratification. And what are your thoughts on, with people with more of an instant gratification mindset? And I always found this early on, people not maxing out their 401k. And I don't know what the studies are today of that, but people wanting more kind of instant stuff versus saying, hey, invest this today and use it in 50 years. Right. And so how is the instant versus delayed shift changing the way people invest earlier?
I think there's a lot of subtlety to that question, right? As soon as you started talking about that, I went out to the riddle. Would you like to have a penny a day that doubles every day for 30 days or $1 million?
I'll double it and take the 10.7 million
every single day.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten the total outcome. So thank you for giving me the 10.7.
10.7.
And this is
on the first day, I use it all the time in my keynotes, and is 31st day, it's 10.7 million. And I usually say, like, by show of hands, who wants the $1 million right now versus, what you get on day 31. Yeah. Yeah.
And this might be delayed gratification, but it's also a really good illustration of asking a question. What happens on day 8?
I just want to throw something in that effect, because I talk about this, and it's really about day 21, 22, where it really starts to kind of accelerate.
The curve changes.
The curve changes. And so when you talk about, 30 days payout on the 31st, you got to get, 75%. You got to do 75% in order for it to really, the compound from the, 675,000 to the 1.3 million to the 2 million,
to 2.6 to the 4 to the 5.8.
Correct. And so there's patience with that. And that's what I find is, it's like that first 20 something days, or the first 20 something, the first ... 75% is a lot of the heavy lifting, but then the benefits come.
Right. And that's why I was going to day 8, because at day 8, you don't see the results yet.
Correct.
And at day 20, you're starting to see the results. And you can see pretty quick that things are changing. And I think that's that investing mentality. In the last 7 years or so, the stock market, the real estate market, the alternative investment Bitcoin market have all been growing at massive rates. And people have thought that money should be doubled every 2-3 years just because.
Yeah.
The law of 72 says that your return divided by the average return you have divided by 72 tells you how many years it will take for you to double your money. That law has been around for a long time. And the reason it works is that historically and presently, the formulas don't change. People forget the concept that it takes time for money to grow on itself. Think about this. If you're a coach and you get a big retainer fee, or you're a sales executive, you get a big commission. You can either spend that commission or you can invest that commission. You can spend that commission on material items and lifestyle. You can invest that commission on tax-deferred decision-making choices or tax-neutral decision-making choices. And you can grow your commissions without you having to work for them again and again and again.
Right.
And all of those decisions are choices that we make. I've got 2 children, 2 stepchildren. We have a fleet of 6 cars for 6 drivers. My daughter totaled her car 2 weeks ago. She wasn't in the wrong. She was making a left-hand turn and a driver ran a red light at midnight and hit her head on. She's fine. He's fine.
Okay.
The car was a junker and I was self-insured. Why was I self-insured? I asked myself questions. And it's a $4,000 vehicle. So last night I had the discussion with my daughter around the financial literacy of, okay, you're almost 21 years of age. Is it my job to buy you a car or is it your job? Here's the money from this avenue. Where are you going to be in 18 months? She goes to school in the East Coast and she's considering moving into Manhattan. So is it worthy to buy a car for a year? Or is there a better decision for her to make?
Right.
And these are the questions that we don't teach our children to ask.
Yeah.
And we don't teach ourselves to ask. We go to an immediacy gratification. And the world, while there is great immediacy gratification, i.e. going and getting a good cappuccino at Starbucks makes you feel awesome for 10 minutes. $5 a day is $60, it's $1,500. It's a crazy amount of money per month if you do it. $20, it's $1,000. Yeah, it's a crazy amount of money.
Right, it adds up. Let me ask you a question.
Really quickly.
Yeah, it adds up. So I love what you're talking about, and I want to go back real quickly. You're talking about conversations with your children, your daughter, et cetera. I'm glad everybody's okay from that accident. But take me back X amount of years to, your childhood and what was going on around your table that influenced you.
There was none. There was no table around this. There was a void of conversation. It was dad went to work, mom went to work, and we paid the bills. Yeah. Occasionally, I remember my dad coming home one day waving a manila envelope, having been paid a bonus. Yeah. I have no idea what that bonus was. I have no idea what happened. It turned out that at one point in his 40s, he inherited like $10,000 from a long lost aunt. Yeah. And he turned that $10,000 into, over the course of the next 30 years, $700,000, $800,000 by investing it. But he had to get self-taught. And then when I went to him, when I made money and I asked the questions, he didn't know how to share it. He was just making guesses, making gambles.
Survival mode.
Yeah. And this is no negative on my father. He worked really hard and did a lot of things. And he was what I would call a plugger, or a horse racing mutter. You're going to keep going and going and going. And you just put your head down and go forward. But we need to start asking real crucial, relevant questions. Yeah. How am I going to improve my place? How am I going to grow toward my goals? What are my horizons? Yeah. All kinds of questions.
What I love about what you're talking about, as a business coach, David, I talk a lot about questions we ask ourselves, questions we ask our clients, questions we ask, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm a big believer that the person who asks the questions is in control, right? Whether you're in control of how you're moving through a meeting or whether you're in control of your life. And so, you said earlier, I ask myself some questions. What are one or two more questions that people should be asking themselves on the daily, on the daily and or weekly and or monthly and or quarterly?
Is it worth consuming this?
Okay. What's
the opportunity cost to do or not do this?
Okay.
If something's being given to us for free, would we buy it?
Yeah. And typically, if it's given to us for free, if it's given to us for free, we're the product.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And people don't think about that. And then I think there's a whole bunch more around. I've been interviewing my investors to work through how really smart, successful people achieve great decision-making in business while invisibly underperforming in their investments and not realizing it.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is that we need to ask ourselves, what is happening in the world and how does it impact my financial situation? Right. Every day, all the time. Yeah. And I think that's a crucial part of it. If you're paying for credit card debt right now at 25%, $1 in $4 you're spending goes to nothing but interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So you got to pause and think about that. All right, David, quick speed round. A book that's had the biggest impact on you.
The Millionaire Next Door.
Great one. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
The Serenity Prayer. God grant me the wisdom to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I screwed it up.
I actually read it. I actually read it yesterday. Right. I'm not in the program, but I'm very familiar with it because people in my family who are, and so I kind of keep it in my notes, like where I journal, and I just happen to kind of come across it. It's a great.
My grandmother was in the program and she died 18 years sober. And there's tremendous power in understanding what you can control, what you cannot control, and being able to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, no, it's great. Last question. A question that has made the biggest impact on you to evolve your mindset.
What am I doing today that will give me the results I desire tomorrow?
I love it. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are, where they can connect with you, et cetera.
My ideal clients are the top 1% of income earners who are looking to create greater financial literacy and grow their net worth. You can connect with me at macassets.com. I also host a podcast called Break Your Golden Handcuffs.
I love it. David, a pleasure. Really appreciate you taking time to be on the show. Think Community, as you know, I'm a business coach. I work with successful people all over the globe who are stuck and get them unstuck. And I love this podcast because I get to have guests like David on who can provide you guidance to get and keep you unstuck. David, you talked about a lot of great things when it comes to financial and investing literacy, but one of the what I'm going to extract is one of my favorite things to always talk about is Think Community. Make sure you are pausing, carving out time to ask yourself the right questions, tap into your intuition and your instincts, but make sure that you're taking time every day to just be silent, pause, ask yourself a question before you make some decisions. It makes decision-making so much easier when you create the routine of asking yourself questions, and whether that looks like journaling, thinking about it, going for a walk, ask yourself smart questions, do the same with your clients. David, this was an absolute pleasure. You can reach David at macassets.com. You can reach me at jondwoskin.com. David, any last thoughts?
The question not asked is the question never answered.
That's a mic drop. Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody.